Welcome to the city of Liverpool. The city of Liverpool has a population of about 500,000. The Liverpool city region has a population of 1.6 million. Now, our story today is not only about the city of Liverpool, but also about the River Mersey. The big date in British history is 1066 and the Battle of Hastings, when William the Conqueror came over from France and defeated the English. At the time, Liverpool didn't exist, but there may well have been some fishing huts here on the banks of the River Mersey, but nothing more than that. It wasn't until another king, King John, who came along in 1207 because he wanted to establish a port so that he could invade Ireland and put down the unruly Irish. Can you imagine an Irish person being unruly? Now, this King John has been made famous by Disney film studios because he was bad old King John, because he likes to raise taxes for his own wealth. But at the time, in 1207, he built a new town of 7 streets and a castle. Now, the river that you see is called the River Mersey. It means boundary river in Old English. The River Mersey rises in the Stockport area of Manchester, and the river meanders its way for approximately 69 miles and empties into the Irish Sea. At this point that you can see, it's only 0.7 miles wide. But back in 1207, the width of the river was nearly 1 mile wide. And it's the story of the River Mersey and the growth of Liverpool that we'll talk about here today. The River Mersey has a tidal estuary of between 12 feet to 33 feet every day. It has sinking sands, moving sandbanks, a current between 5 to 7 knots, and when we have gale force winds in the past, it was impossible for the sailing ferries to cross from one side of the river to the other. Of Liverpool in 1207, for the next 400 years, nothing really happened. Yes, there were skirmishes and plagues, but this was a sleepy town under the shadow of the port of Chester. In 1666, there was a little ship called the Antelope, a ship of only 60 tons displacement, laden with Irish linen, set sail for the Caribbean. A year later it came back, laden with sugarcane, and the merchants got back twice the money they had invested. Trade developed rapidly with Virginia and a more profitable crop called tobacco. For Liverpool merchants, here was now a new world of trade, beyond the Irish Sea and Europe, for which the port on the River Mersey was ideally situated, helped as well by the disaster of the Great Fire of London and the continuous war with France, affecting the commerce in the English Channel. Now, some businessmen began to leave London for the bustling and perhaps safer port and town of Liverpool. Liverpool expanded not only in size but also in population, and by the end of the century in 1700, Liverpool had now 28 streets and a population of 7,000. However, in these days, because of the tidal rise and fall of the River Mersey from 12 feet to 33 feet, it could take 14 days to offload and load a ship. Very, very inefficient. So the merchants of Liverpool decided to build in 1715 the very first enclosed dock in the world. Now, an enclosed dock is a dock that isn't affected by the tide. This new dock could take up to 100 ships. In the ensuing centuries, over 7.5 miles of docks were built and approximately 86 miles of quays. This led to Liverpool being named by some as the second city of the British Empire. Now, the building in front of us is our Royal Liver Assurance Building, built in 1911, and the architect was a Walter Aubrey Thomas. It was built in the Henning Beek method style. Now, Henning Beek conceived the idea of using metal cased in concrete, and so reinforced concrete was born. A metal frame that supports walls and floors with a granite facing facade for weatherproofing. The Liver building was one of the very first buildings in the world to be built using reinforced concrete. It stands 322 foot high. It has 2 clock faces, each 25 foot wide, larger than the London's Great Westminster Clock. Above is our 2 famous mythical liver birds. Facing us is Bella, a female liver bird who's waiting for her sailor husband to come home. On the other end of the building is Bertie. He's a male liver bird who's just really waiting for all the pubs to open. Both Bella and Bertie are tied down because legend has it that if they were to fly away, Liverpool would cease to exist. The designer was Karl Bartels from Stuttgart. Now you may recognize this building from the latest Batman film. This building is the police department of Gotham City. Batman, Robert Pattinson, can be seen standing right at the very top of the liver building underneath the clock face, ready to save Gotham City and the world. Liverpool is one of the most filmed cities in the UK, with over 300 productions in 2023. Our next building is the Cunard building. Built by 1916, it's a mixture of Italian Renaissance and Greek Revival. Constructed in reinforced concrete but clad in Portland stone, the frieze is clad with shields of the countries allied in World War I. There are signs of the zodiac, and there's an American eagle on each corner. So this was Cunard's head office and first class waiting lounge for the passengers going over to the New World. Well, what about the other classes? Well, they were accommodated in the basement, along with the baggage handling and the storage. Samuel Cunard from Halifax, Canada was a highly successful businessman. He built the steamship the Prince William to run between Halifax and Quebec, and his experience led him to England to set up a company to run a transatlantic mail service between the UK and North America. His first steamship was the Britannia that sailed from Liverpool to Halifax and then on to Boston, Massachusetts. The journey only took 12 days and 10 hours, and previously a sailing ship crossing the Atlantic could take up to 4 to 6 weeks depending on the prevailing winds. Cunard was awarded the Royal Mail contract, and Cunard dominated the Atlantic passenger trade with some of the most famous liners in the world, such as the Queen Mary. Today, Liverpool is the spiritual home of the Cunard shipping line, and in 2024 we had the arrival of Cunard's latest ship, the Queen Anne. In 2025, Cunard will be back again, back to its spiritual home here in Liverpool. Now for some, the Beatles statue is the most important statue in the whole of Liverpool. Chris Butler from Castle Fine Arts saw a picture of the Beatles walking down a London street, and he approached the sculptor Andy Edwards, and this is what you see today. It's the same lineup as the Beatles would have been playing on stage. Now the statue has many symbols, so if we look from left to right, Paul has a camera by his heart, a reference to his late wife Linda. On the back of George's belt is a Hindu Sanskrit inscription. On the sole of Ringo's right shoe is attached a card with the postal code of Liverpool 8, the area where he grew up. Ringo is slightly set back from the others because he would have been behind the others as a drummer in the band. John has 2 acorns in his hand. They were actually acorns collected from the nearby Dakota building in New York City, where John lived with Yoko. John and Yoko sent acorns to the world leaders in the late 1960s as a message of peace. Unveiled by Julia Baird, John Lennon's sister, on the 4th of December 2015, it was a ceremony that coincided with the 50th anniversary of the last concert that the Beatles played in Liverpool. This bronze statue was paid for by the world-famous Cavern Club, situated in Matthew Street, where the Beatles played 292 times. The statue is placed on the shores of Liverpool, looking out to the world, and so connecting them with all the worldwide fans. Now in front of us is the Port of Liverpool building. And it was built on the site of the old George's Dock, named after King George III, and opened in 1771, and replaced the old shipyards for sailing ships. Now, just for information really, it was King George III who lost the American colonies. These docks have been used for the slave trade, and the area behind is called the Goree, after the Goree warehouses, the island situated off the west coast of Africa. By the end of the 19th century, George's dock had reached its sell-by date, and the City Council requested that the dock should be filled in and that building sites should become available. The dock board took one of these sites and they started to build this impressive building, and it was finished by 1907. The building is in the Edwardian Baroque style, built in reinforced concrete and then clad in Portland stone. Because of its central dome, it's been compared to the Capitol building in Washington, Belfast City Hall, or London's St. Paul's Cathedral. And all of this was built for £250,000, with the internal cost of fittings of furniture approximately altogether £350,000. Now, the port of Liverpool was badly damaged in 1941, and particularly in the 1941 May Blitz. The building has now been restored to its former glory. Inside, the halls and corridors are lined with Calcutta marble designs, and the floor is by the Italian master Giuseppe Fellini. Now, these three buildings, the Port of Liverpool building, the Cunard building, and the Royal Liver building, have a nickname here in Liverpool, and they are called the Three Graces. Now, the Three Graces were the daughters of Zeus, the Greek god of the sky, lightning, thunder, and law and order. And the three daughters represented in the past youth and beauty, mirth, elegance. And they embody the qualities, as we do here in Liverpool, of shared friendship, beauty, and love. In front of these three magnificent buildings is Canada Boulevard. Liverpool has always had strong links with Canada, not only for the trade in timber, fishing, shipbuilding, wheat, and of course, emigration. In 1847, 110,000 emigrated to Canada and 142,000 to the US. Now, Canada Boulevard is a memorial to the Canadian contribution to the Battle of the Atlantic. Memorial stones are set into the footpath. In May 1995, 52 maple trees were planted along this road. 36 were for the Canadian naval and merchant ships lost in the war. 14 maple trees for the Canadian Air Force squadrons that helped win the Battle of the Atlantic, and 2 maple trees dedicated to the Canadians lost at sea.